Because like I just want to see, like, there's multiple things I want to watch, but like, okay, nope, loud. I want to see Big Herta. If you don't fix this quality, oh, I didn't say that. Wait, actually, unironically, do I unironically go watch fucking Braxis instead because it's probably better quality? Do I? Do I do that?
Here, back with another video, and on today's
Wait, hold. Let me see something. Hold up. You know what? Braxis is better quality, but like, I ride with my goat. Mr. Pokey.
So like, we are going to be taking a look at the emulator of erudition number 83.
Let me see my Big Herta.
BIG HERTA, right?
Big Herta.
BIG HERTA has been teased to us ever since the ending of the version 2.7 story, as well as the version 3.0 dev livestream. She's going to be our 5-star ice erudition DPS, excelling against AoE targets. But more importantly, I do want to kind of showcase how BIG HERTA is going to be able to match up compared to the upcoming Mimo Sprite meta, Mimo Sprite DPS, because technically for her, she's essentially just a upgraded version of an erudition DPS, right? So going into version 3, is she gonna be performing? Will she change everything?
I'm so cooked. I'm skipping Aguilera so I can be sure to get my Herta.
Idolens, etc. So without further ado, let's get into today's content. Before we jump into like her character kit, islands, all that kind of stuff, I just want to give a quick note. I do not think that BIG HERTA at this current point will be a game-breaking DPS, mainly because she will feel very strong for now, because all of the content, they are basically tailored for 5-tier content, and BIG HERTA excels at 5-tier content. But I do feel that BIG HERTA, her problems will become more obvious in the future if you are going to be using her in scenarios where there are less than 5 targets. Something similar that erudition has faced. For BIG HERTA herself, she definitely has means to make it easier, which I'll explain later. But I do still feel that as a erudition unit, she will still perform less optimally against targets like 2 target, 3 target, or even 1 target scenario. I wouldn't say that she will be the strongest DPS for another reason, which is gonna be she doesn't really have a dedicated team, or rather a perfectly tailored team for her as of now. I do mean this, like for example, a Sunday Jingyuan or a Aircron Jiao Qiu or a Fei Xiao Robin. They are like almost like perfect tailored teams. For now, BIG HERTA is still very strong as a baseline. She has a lot of room to grow in the future, but we still lack a dedicated team.
That is also fair,
HERTA, right? So something for you guys.
Like, we don't really have that for erudition users. Like, we have just general supports that just work
right now. Alright, so for BIG HERTA's kit summary, she definitely wants someone to be following the path of erudition when you build a team alongside her. But unlike Aircron, which needs 2 Nihility class units, BIG HERTA only needs 1. So it is technically a little bit more flexible. But then flip side is the Nihility class units can be seen as like supports because you can apply debuffs, whereas for pretty much every single erudition unit we have right now, they are all DPS. So they aren't really any support erudition class units yet, unless we get them in the upcoming future banners, aside from Jade, right? But we'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Jade's a little only
BIG HERTA will be able to increase the team's crit damage by 80%.
Let me read. When entering battle, if the team has 2 more characters following the path of erudition, increases all ally.
If there's another erudition teammate, on top of generating more energy as well as interpretation stacks to all targets hit, with erudition creators applying additional stacks. And interpretation, which we'll be talking about in the talent, is gonna be an extremely crucial component to BIG HERTA's damage, because it will directly increase the damage multiplier of her enhanced skill. So most of the time with BIG HERTA, you want to kind of wait until the enemy has the maximum of 42 interpretation before using the enhanced skill, because every single step is going to be a direct damage multiplier increase. So that's going to be very important. Generally speaking, in the way you play BIG HERTA is essentially you pair up with an erudition teammate. For both BIG HERTA and the erudition teammate, you will just apply your AoE damage, apply all of your stacks. You have a slot 3 support. It could be Robin, it could be Sunday, and then just run a sustain. Preferably in this case, this sustain is going to be Lingsha, because Lingsha also applies more AoE, which means more stacks, right? You can technically use your enhanced skill before reaching 42 stacks, unlike Aircron, which really needs 9 stacks before you can even cast ultimate, it is still highly recommended to only cast D Herta's enhanced skill because the damage multiplier goes up by a lot at the maximum 42, and it is not that difficult to reach all the way to the maximum number of interpretation. So generally speaking, you will do something like apply stacks, apply buffs, cast your ultimate, which gives you an extra action value advance, and then from there, if the enemy has a 42, preferably because you already casted your ultimate, it rearranges all of the stacks to the main strongest target. Then you cast your enhanced skill to do the highest damage possible to the enemy with the highest amount of HP, right? So this is basically how you play Big Herta, whether it be in Pure Fiction, Apoc Shadows, or Memory of Chaos. And let's just jump straight into her character kit itself. So basic attack, don't really need to care, but one thing is you might see yourself using D Herta's basic attack a little bit more frequently than usual because you want to conserve your enhanced skill usage, which is going to be this portion right here. So D Herta has 2 different skills, right? The normal skill as well as the enhanced skill. For a normal skill, it is basically a 1 target into 3 target into 5 target.
Every time Herta's attack with them, the one that the enemy inflicts 1 second
and every single time, the middle target will be the one receiving the highest amount of damage. So it's going to be 70% for the main guy, and then 70% for the main guy plus the 2 other guys, and then 70% for the main guy plus the 4 other guys, right? So it's going to be something like a 210% plus 140% to the adjacent target plus 70% to the all the way targets towards the end, right? So in total, this is gonna be probably one of, if not the strongest skill multiplier that can be applied in the entire game. In comparison to Argenti, his skill is only 120% to all targets. So at a baseline, D Herta is also gonna be one of, if not the best.
Oh, so is that why my Argenti does no freaking damage? I love this skill. I think he's cool, but genuinely, I regret pulling for him. I mainly pulled for him at the time because I didn't have a physical DPS. I just wanted a physical character. I was like, oh yeah, Argenti's cool. But genuinely, like, I've tried so much to make him good. But I feel like he just does not do good damage no matter what I do, no matter what supports I throw at him. He's just doing lackluster stuff. Like, I'm out here farming for my trace materials, and I'm clearing it faster with my Jing Liu than I will him. The actual erudition character. Like, in every piece of content I put him in that is suited for him, he gets outclassed by other characters that aren't even erudition.
PS have right now. And one interesting thing to note over here is the main target that you focus with her skill, it is going to be receiving 70% times 3, which is 210%. In contrast, Scylla, which is a single target hyper carry, her skill is a 220% multiplier. So even though D Herta is technically a unit situation for erudition content, right, 5 target scenarios, her single target multiplier is already almost the same as a single target DPS compared to version 1, right? So that's something interesting that I'm proud of. Then the enhanced skill is gonna be only available after you cast your ultimate, right? So after you cast your ultimate, your normal skill can't be used. So you can only use the enhanced skill, and it is almost exactly the same as the normal skill, aside from having a larger multiplier of 80% times 3, as well as the final 40% to all targets. So for the normal skill is 210, 140, and 70. The enhanced skill is going to be 280 for the main target, then 200%, then 120% for the main, adjacent, and all 5 targets. As well as the fact that the damage multiplier from this enhanced skill, it will increase with more interpretation stacks. So this is the most important part for D Herta's kit, because at a baseline erudition, especially for a emanator of erudition, 280% on a single target, it's honestly still very low compared to a lot of like our other ultimates or other skills that we have in our previous versions, where they have extremely high single target multipliers, which means that D Herta will probably fall behind if you are going to be using her against contents that does not have a multiple enemies from her. Right? But luckily for us, enhanced skills main damage, the main target, it will go up substantially based on the number of interpretation stacks, which is what ties to her being a lot stronger compared to all of our other erudition units, which tends to suffer if there are no 5 target content, right? But before we jump to the talent and talk about interpretation, we'll just quickly talk about the ultimate, which is, the name is pretty funny. In fact, all of her name is pretty funny, right? It's like big energy. Told ya magic happens, and hear me out. Okay, but anyways, her ultimate is gonna be doing the following, right? It's quite a bit of words, but it's just gonna be doing the following. The most important part is it shuffles all interpretation stacks to group up against the stronger enemy.
Oh.
So this stack rearrangement thing is a little bit mysterious on how it works, but something to know is that even if there are 42 stacks on the field, it doesn't mean that there will be a target with 42 stacks after the rearrangement. So that if there's already a target with 42 stacks and if you cast your ultimate, there might be a scenario where you might not hit the 42 stacks again. It doesn't always lock in at 42 stacks.
What?
I think the AI that this ultimate works is that it must distribute a minimum amount of interpretation stacks for all 5 targets, which is why if you have like 42 and like 1, 1, 1, 1, and if you cast ultimate, not getting 42 afterwards, because it wants to distribute everything evenly. So that's something that I've noticed. Then aside from the shuffling thing, she increases the attack by 80% for 3 turns, deals damage to all enemies at a 200% multiplier, as well as 1 use of her enhanced skill, holding up to 4 enhanced skill. On top of all that, it allows BIG HERTA to immediately take action, right? So since BIG HERTA's ultimate will allow her to take action using her enhanced skill, and since using the enhanced skill will cost skill points, be sure to always save at least 1 skill point during BIG HERTA's turn after using an ultimate. So for example, if you're BIG HERTA's turn right now, you haven't get ultimate yet.
I'm on top of his head.
And you get an ultimate. At this point, you want to kind of make sure you have at least 2 skill points so that you can cast skill the first time, then cast ultimate, then cast the enhanced skill again, right? Otherwise, you will have to wait for the next turn. However, if you do get the signature icon, then this would not be the case, but I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Also, when it's close to BIG HERTA's turn, you can wait for her turn to start and then do a free basic attack, which is basically a free +1 skill point before using the ultimate again, because it will immediately allow BIG HERTA to go right afterwards, right? So, and then after all that talk about interpretation, we're just gonna jump into the most important point of BIG HERTA, which is going to be the talent Hand Them Over, right? It is a lot of words, but it can be essentially summarized as this. All enemies, they will automatically receive 1 stack of interpretation when they enter into battle. And their stacks, it will be transferred if they are defeated, but the stacks cannot transfer between waves. For every single new wave, you will apply 25 stacks of interpretation randomly at the start of everything, right? So that is the first thing. Second thing is when you use your enhanced skill, the damage dealt to all targets, it will increase based on the interpretation stacks, but it's on the primary target only, right? And these bonuses, it will double if there's another erudition unit on the team. So it is very, very important because of this that you want to wait until the primary target has 42 stacks, because not just this talent alone, BIG HERTA's Trace also grants her a 50% damage boost if she targets an enemy with 42 stacks. And every single stack, it will increase the damage multiplier by 8% with no erudition, which shouldn't be the case. So it will be every single stack for 16% damage multiplier for a total of 672% multiplier at 42 stacks. So this difference is quite literally night and day. It is equivalent of casting 2 more enhanced skills, essentially more than 2 enhanced skills, right? So it is a very, very important for BIG HERTA to only use her enhanced skill when the main target has 42 stacks of interpretation, as well as the fact that we are assuming that you are already running erudition unit in the team, right? So since the attack buff from BIG HERTA's ultimate can last for 3 turns, she can actually hold this enhanced skill usage until the enemy actually reaches 42 stacks. But for that case, you either want to, increase the uptime of your other team to generate the stacks, or just use BIG HERTA's basic attack, because you cannot use a normal skill anymore afterwards, right? So in total, what exactly is BIG HERTA's damage from this enhanced skill after feathering the ultimate, her tracers, as well as all the talent on the top, right? So if you consume a 42 stack on the main target, and you are using a Path of Erudition with BIG HERTA, the damage multiplier for assuming a 5 target content is gonna be 952%
That's
on a single target,
number.
536% on the adjacent target, and 456% on all other targets. So it's 1, 2, then 3, right? This is a combined total of a 2,936% damage multiplier, which is the highest damage multiplier we have seen in Honkai Star Rail in the entire game. Granted, this is against a 5 target scenario. Even though it is a 5-target scenario, her single target enhanced skill at 42 stacks is still a 952% on the main target. This in comparison to Fei Xiao's ultimate,
isn't that Fei
which
Xiao
is a
600?
maximum of 700%
700.
multiplier. BIG HERTA's enhanced single skill literally does 952%. Assuming you do hit the max stacks, right? So from a numbers perspective alone, BIG HERTA looks to be extremely strong even for a erudition unit. So yep, that's just something to consider. And now we're just gonna jump into the technique.
Oh, she's so pretty. I need her in my life. I want to be her hat. I want to be her hat, bro. I want to be her hat, and I can go with her like wherever she wants, and like I can like be a part of her.
Tracer's Vibe Checker. BIG HERTA's attack increased by 60% start of next battle, lasting for 2 turns. Mainly, you'll always use this in all of your endgame content, but some quality of life, especially
has the
for
same
new players,
technique
is that you can basically see
on paper
up to 3 basic treasures when
versions
using this in the map, as well as if you enter into battle by using the technique in the SU or Diversion universe, it will deal 99% of max HP
Excuse
to
me?
mob, 30% max HP to a elite and above. Unfortunately, it can't one-shot the mobs like Acheron, but it is still a very nice quality of life to have for players that just started out playing this game and you want to use BIG HERTA in similar universe, right? So that is basically that for her entire kit. Then jumping into her trace. For trace 1, Aloof Flame Oilers essentially allows our allies' attacks to inflict 1 set of interpretation to all enemy targets hit and regenerates 3 energy for BIG HERTA based on the enemy targets, which is going to be 15 energy, right? And this is not going to be affected by our energy regeneration rope, so BIG HERTA wouldn't gain more energy than 15 every single time your teammates attack. Also, like I mentioned just now, the damage for enhanced skill, it will increase by 50% if the main target has 42 interpretation. So once again, always hit this when the main target has 42 stacks of interpretation, right? Then for Trace 2 Message from Beyond the Veil, to compensate for running 2 erudition units inclusive of HERTA herself, she will increase the entire team's crit damage by
the entire
80%.
team's crit damage
And it
by 80 is
calculates at
wild.
least 3 targets when the trace aloofly hits a target. So it will always be a minimum of 3 even if you're against a 1 target or 2 target enemy scenario, right? Generally speaking, although this is very beneficial of BIG HERTA as well as the erudition teammate like your Jade, Mini HERTA, Saval, or Himiko, it can also benefit your supports like your Sunday, Bronya,
Oh
and
yeah,
Sparkle,
it can really
or
benefit
even
Sunday. He
Remembrance
just gets a
Trailblazer,
bunch
because
of
they
freaking
do scale higher with increased crit damage, right? Making their buffs even stronger. So something to keep in mind for that as well. Unfortunately, Robin wouldn't gain any of these buffs, but I digress, right? And this trait, like I mentioned, will allow us to apply the additional stack every single attack. So if you have erudition teammates, you will always apply a minimum of 3 stacks. So just to smooth up her rotations against enemies with lesser than 3 targets, right? And then for the final trace, for every 1 stack of interpretation, you'll gain 1 stack of answer, up to 99 stacks, increasing the damage multiplier for the ultimate by 1%. This buff does not go away. So the moment you apply this interpretation,
so
whether
it's like
it be applied
Jade's
by
buff.
the HERTA or your erudition teammates or anyone, you will gain this 1 stack of answer, right?
It's like
so
Jade's buff. The
this
long, like, it
ultimate
just
damage
goes on
multiplier,
as
it will
the
then
battle goes on.
increase from 200%
Understood.
to 299%. Not that insane because majority of BIG HERTA's damage actually comes from an enhanced skill, but it is still a pretty nice roundup. It is still basically like a 33% damage upgrade, right? From 200 to 299. So really decent quality of life, especially if you want to clear out the mobs. So in summary, after yapping all that, BIG HERTA's gameplay loop, it will be relying on having as many enemies on the field, preferably 5 targets, and she also wants an ally that can launch AoE attacks, right? So on top of getting erudition teammates, she will also prefer a sustainer support that can do AoE themselves in order for the entire team to generate as many interpretation stacks as possible. So unlike Acheron, where the stacks are generated from debuffs, anyone in BIG HERTA's team can apply interpretation. It just depends on how fast do you apply the interpretation. And in this case, having AoE attacks would apply this as fast as possible, right? On top of generating the energy for BIG HERTA. So for BIG HERTA, once you have a team that can deal a lot of area of effect, you can then use the ultimate or use your normal skill to defeat the weaker enemies, transfer the stacks to the main target, and then use your enhanced skill to deal the absolutely disgusting 952% multiplier on the main target, right? So that would be essentially how you would play BIG HERTA. Now moving on to a light cone, first talking about the signature into the Unreachable Veil. Increase various crit by 12%, and when you use your ultimate, increase your skill and ultimate damage by 60%, lasting for 3 turns. After the wearer uses the ultimate, if the ultimate consumed 140 or more energy, it will recover 1 skill point. So for her signature light cone, it gives her a much needed crit rate because most erudition light cones, they do not have any crit buff.
I know that.
And as well as a
Argenti.
very large damage bonus. But the main advantage comes from two things. One is it has one of the highest 635 base attack in the entire game. And secondly, so after you cast your ultimate, she immediately takes action. You will need that 1 skill point, and because of this signature light cone, you can then allocate these skill points into rather your support, your other erudition DPS, your mini Herta, your Himiko if you're not going to be using Jade, right? Your sustained Lingsha. This skill point economy, generally speaking, is going to be quite effective, especially since the Herta's team con, from what I've been seeing so far, is that it can consume quite a bit of skill points, especially if you're not using Jade, right? So even if you are using Jade, it still consumes quite a bit, especially if you use Lingsha, right? So that is going to be that for the signature icon. Then for the other alternatives, Argenti's signature icon is honestly not too shabby. Night of the Milky Way is also a very decent alternative, especially in pure vision, because now it is going to be a permanent 45% attack buff. It is always going to be 5 target anyway. And as long as there are eyes with enemies, the Herta also does pretty decent toughness bar damage to the entire team and easily gets the extra damage buff from our Night of Milky Way. So very decent alternative. And aside from these two, you can kind of think of the Herta style icon Internal Calculus, decent free to play option as long as you're against 3 or more enemies, which should be most of the time using the Herta for that. Even though she's doing very good damage against a single target or even 2 targets, because the damage multiplier for the enhanced skill is so high, generating stacks for scenarios less than 3 targets, it will still be a little bit annoying. Similar to how Argenti doesn't really generate as much energy if you use him against enemy targets that are less than 4 or 5, right? So same thing. And then today is another peaceful day. The Battle Pass light cone is going to be a pretty decent 56% damage bonus, pretty much permanently up 100% of the time, right? So that is going to be that for the light cone. And now jumping into the builds. So jumping into the build for the Herta, kind of like how you will build your crit DPS, but with a higher degree of flexibility. For the body, it's always going to be the same crit rate or crit damage depending on the subsets. For your shoes, your feet, you can either run attack percentage or speed. Well, I'll talk about it a little bit later. And then for a planar sphere, generally you want ice damage boost, even if you do get a signature light cone. But again, the difference between this and attack is going to be quite small depending on which subsets you have. Then for your rope, you can also run attack percentage or energy regeneration rope. So whether do you run attack boots or speed boots for the Herta, it depends on if you pair with Jade, as well as some other factors, right? So these are the scenarios where you will run speed boots. If you want to pair the Herta with Sunday, then you would want her to reach the 135 speed threshold, or rather specifically above 133.4, so that you can run the Herta, Sunday, the Herta, right? So for that, you will want to run the Herta with speed boots. In other cases, if you're going to be running with Robin, I would also recommend going for speed boots, since her attack would be really high with Robin's attack buff, as well as the attack buff from her own ultimate. And then on top of that, you also want to reach the 134 speed so they can gain the extra action after Robin casts her ultimate, right? So the first most obvious one is, if you pair her with Jade, I would recommend going for attack boots, because Jade does give you the buff needed to reach 134 speed. So as long as you have more than 104 speed on the Herta, plus 30 speed allows you to hit 134, which means you can generate 2 actions per very first wave. If you want to pair the Herta with Sparkle, then you will also run the Herta on attack boots, since Sparkle's speed, or rather, since the Herta's speed will be basically tied to Sparkle's speed, right? If you want to run with attack boots, like I mentioned just now, you can run it with Jade, or you want to run attack boots and only rely on your teammates to give her energy. So in this setup, if you just rely on spamming energy and you're okay with not getting the extra turn for Herta herself, you can honestly just let her chill and rely on Big Herta spamming the ultimate to get the additional action very advanced. So with this additional attack boots, you can deal more damage in her entire kit, namely her ultimate as well as the enhanced skill, right? Keep in mind, the Herta's ultimate energy cost is still
honestly though, in your
220,
case,
so it could take a little bit. But for players that kind of just want to see bigger numbers, or if you're comfortable to run her with your a lot of area of effect damaging units,
we don't
like
know
your
what my
Jade,
day
your
is.
Himiko, your Lingsha,
I actually
then
can't say
running
that.
attack boots on the Herta would still be pretty decent. So at the end of the day, it really depends on what support are you going to be running with the Herta before determining if you want to run attack boots or speed boots. And then for the second question, which is attack percentage or energy regeneration, I would say for most cases, I would recommend
or you could combine
the attack percentage rope and just deal as much damage as possible.
Or at the very least, do not just eat a single lemon, you freak.
You want to wait for the target to have 42 stacks of interpretation anyways. So it's not like you will want to spam your ultimate as much as possible, because like I mentioned just now, the way the ultimate AI works is that it will redistribute your interpretation stack across all the enemy team. So if you already have a 42 stack on the enemy target, you would just want to use your enhanced skill and not use the ultimate immediately in order to not waste the action value advance, right? So I have found myself holding on to D Herta's ultimate just to save the extra turn. And
I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna have to rewatch this because I'm low-key, like, I'm processing, but I'm open. What I like about Poke's videos, like, he's very, like, in-depth with his explanation, and, like, it makes my small brain understand. However, unfortunately, I'm, like, especially stupid today, so I'm gonna have to, like, rewatch segments on my own when I'm building her, because I'm
for
done.
that reason, since there's going to be energy spillage, I do prefer running the attack rope most of the time, right? However, there are also scenarios where you could consider energy regeneration, because energy regeneration rope has the potential to let D Herta use her ultimate every single turn in pure friction, because there's so many enemies for your entire team to deal area of effect, and assuming that it's always going to be 5 targets, it's going to be 15 energy, 15 energy, 15 energy, 15 energy. It is going to be very, very powerful when D Herta herself gets the kill, right? Even though the 15 energy is not going to be affected by your energy regeneration rope, sometimes you are just missing that little bit of energy to cast the ultimate, which you should have gotten from getting the kills, right? The kills energy does stack up with energy regeneration, right? So for this very niche scenario, you can consider running energy regeneration rope, but I would say generally attack percentage rope would be my go-to option, right? And then for the cavern pieces, for the 4-piece, Scholar is gonna be a better slot, basically built for D Herta. Her main source of damage does come from her enhanced skill and then a little bit more from the ultimate.
This for like a century.
So pretty much
was
perfectly
farming when
built,
the double drops came out. I barely have the
skill
pieces
damage,
for
got
it,
the ultimate damage, don't have too much to say. There is another brand new 4-piece. I'll be talking about this in a separate video, which is going to be the upcoming version 3.0 relics, which is going to be the Poet of Morning Collapse. Now this is going to be quite interesting.
Increases quantum damage dealt, decreases the wearer's speed by 8% before entering battle if the wearer's speed is less than 110 or 95. Increases the wearer's crit rate by 20. What the hell is this set?
And before you guys unlock all of your Herta traces, do not unlock Herta's speed trace. Very, very important, because
the set needs 95 speed, or yeah, 95 speed. If you use this set, don't unlock the speed traces, otherwise you cannot run this niche set. You have to be lower, so you have to have, okay.
The Poet of Morning Collapse, it will permanently increase D Herta's crit rate by 32%, as long as she is below 95 speed. The keynote is you can remain below 95 speed only at the start of the fight. So in battle, if you gain any other speed buff, like from Jade, from your Robin E2, from your Rame speed buff, it doesn't matter. As long as the stat screen for D Herta says lesser than 95, then you can unlock this 32% crit rate, right? So this set is only possible to be run on Herta if you choose to not get her speed substats. But if you were to choose to run this brand new 4-piece from version 3.0, always run her with attack percentage boots. Do not unlock her speed tracers. Her best in slot support will likely be a very, very fast Sunday or a very, very fast Sparkle. You can technically still run a Robin, but unfortunately she would miss out that little bit of extra action needed to go 3 times on the very first wave with Robin, right? So it's something for you guys to consider. Just know that it is going to be a very, very good amount of buff, because it is basically a 64% crit value. Just do not unlock the speed tracers if you want to go into this brand new 4-piece, right? And then finally, if you want to consider the 4-piece, the old 4-piece I set, while you can basically maintain 100% buff uptime, the bonuses are just way too weak compared to our all new ready sets. So it is what it is, right? And then for our 2-piece, best in slot is going to be the 2-piece Izumo, right? Perfectly built for her, aeration unit, get the full benefits, get the attack, get the crit rate, very, very nice. If you do not want to run Izumo, you can honestly consider Routine Arena, which is an excellent alternative, because majority
isn't like it's bad, but no, isn't I refuse to, because
it's still going to be coming from her enhanced skill, right? So enhanced skill with the 952% multiplier, it will gain the benefit of Routine Arena on top of the additional crit rate, so a very, very decent alternative. You can consider running your Glamorph, you can consider running Salsodo. They are not as optimal as compared to Izumo or Rutilan, but they are going to be decent alternatives if you have very, very good crit substats, right? So that's going to be that for D Herta's relics. And now jumping into D Herta's Eidolon, first of all being Knight as Shore 4. This Eidolon 1, it essentially allows D Herta's enhanced skill to, first of all, reapply 15 stacks of interpretations. Second of all, the enhanced skill will now factor in your adjacent section, but like honestly, which means your damage.
I'm not pulling for Eidolon, so like this section doesn't really. Honestly, I could low-key just skip this section actually, because like Well, okay, no, I'll look at the E1 because like he's bringing up the E1 or S1 here, so I'll look at it just for the
multiplier,
E1.
right? It used to be 60% per one stack, up to 42. It can exceed 42 stacks. So from the wording over here, it means that it will calculate the additional stacks from the primary target, which means, assuming that you are hitting the max stacks, your enhanced skill will always be at 63 stacks, which will increase the primary target's damage multiplier from 952% to 1288%, which translates to a roughly 35% final damage increase because it is a multiplier increase, not a damage buff. And this is gonna be getting no dilution from any attack, damage, rest, pen, vulnerability, or whatever, right? So for a Idol 1, this is extremely strong against a single target for a 33% final damage increase, which seems to be very beneficial for players that want to run Herta, especially outside of 5 target content. Her personal single target damage will go up by a lot. A 33% buff for E1 honestly is a very decent value. So at this point, between Idolin 1 or Signature Light Cone, I would say that Idol 1 definitely has a much
E1 sounds better on paper in comparison to like the light cone, I would guess. Okay. But I mean, again, for me, I very much am a player. I just try to get my units and get out. I don't usually go for light cones. The only time I honestly go for light cones is if I just really love the character. Like in Firefly's case, I actually didn't need her light cone, but I love Firefly, so I went for it. Sparkle, same thing. Acheron is kind of a mixture of both because, like, yes, I love Acheron and was adoring her, so I went for the cone for that reason, but also because I wasn't a fan of her other options. In the Herta's case, especially because I believe I have the Herta light store, like the Herta store light cone already. I believe I do. I think I should. I don't really feel the need to pull for the S1, and unless I got really lucky, I probably wouldn't pull for E1 either because like I still got a bunch of other characters to pull for. The only character, honestly, like among the, like, if we're counting, I'm counting Herta in this when I say this. Among the Amphorius, like the 3 let me say this instead. Sorry, among the 3 X characters that we've seen, the only character you might catch me pulling a light cone for is Castorice. Because I am so excited for Castorice that y'all do not understand how much I need that character in my game. I am unbelievably excited for Castorice. And maybe, well, no, My Day, I'll probably pull for My Day, but I'm probably not going to get his light cone if I do pull for him. But yeah, you will not catch me doing either of these for Herta. So like, I'm not quite worried about it actually. So I think I can probably like skip over this section because again, this information doesn't really like matter too much for me. Of course, like if you want to find out what the other Eidolons and stuff does, you can go watch this video. Again, for me, I don't really need this information because I don't plan on pulling for your Eidolons anyways.
So for the team comp section, I kind of want to split into 2 different portions. The first one being the erudition teammates that you're running BIG HERTA with, and the second portion being the supports that you're going to be running her with. So for the erudition portion, first of all, Jade. Definitely our current best in slot. 30 more speed allows for attack percentage boost. And Jade herself does deal a pretty good amount of damage, as you have seen from pure friction, right? And then you also gain the 80% crit damage bar from BIG HERTA, so Jade's crit damage goes up even higher. And she also has, and this is probably in my opinion the most important factor, she has the most consistent interpretation stack generation across all of our other follow-up units. Mainly because she is not relying on using that many skill points. For units like Mini, Herta, Himiko, they don't really generate as much interpretation unless you spend a lot of skill points per match. So Jade personally is gonna be BIG HERTA's best in slot erudition for now. Second slot, I would say it's gonna be Mini Herta, which is gonna be the free unit that everyone has, right? The double Herta is gonna be a extremely strong comp actually. Do note that for the double Herta comp, it is going to be more reliant on enemies respawning in a long fight, specifically pure vision. If you use Mini Herta against like Memory of Chaos and the enemies do not respawn, she doesn't land her follow-up attacks, then it's going to be a little bit more
That's one of the things that I really, because like people always like, oh, why don't you build your Herta? Why don't you build your Herta? The reason why I don't like my Herta in anything outside of like maybe pure friction is that I don't like that her follow-up does not proc after you hit an enemy. Like, as in, like, after she uses it that first time, Unless the enemy respawns, she just doesn't do it again.
Only one target left on the field, right? And if the Herta stacks 5 follow-up attacks, keep in mind it only counts as 1 attack. So you can kind of plan out the damage such that she separates her follow-ups for between each individual enemies, right? So very, very decent alternative that everybody have access to. And another 4-star that some of you guys can consider is going to be Serval. So Serval, instead of building her like a DPS, you can build her like a stack generation Serval, somewhat like a skill point generation unit, right? But instead of skill point generation, you're using her as a stack generation, interpretation stack generation, with this 3-star light cone pass key. Using this light cone as well as the right 4-piece eagle, energy generation rope, you can ensure a 2 or even 1 turn ultimate with Serval. And thanks to Serval's E2, her low energy cost, which is one of the lowest in the entire game, as well as the pass key like cone, she can spam a lot of attacks to generate stacks for D Herta. And running this with 4-piece eagle for the action value advance means that her stack generation is one of the highest in the entire game.
I'm not
probably second or maybe even more than coffee in specific setup, right? And then one more erudition alternative is going to be Himiko. I personally feel like Himiko is probably one of the weaker comparisons in terms of a teammates, because for Himiko, unless you trigger
putting a freaking PNG of Himiko,
you're not gonna get the follow-ups. Unlike mini Herta, which will always trigger the follow-up, which means that you do want to run her in an on-enemy scenario and getting the additional stacks for Himiko herself, right? Secondly, Himiko, and a potential issue with this is that D Herta and mini Herta are of the same element, whereas it might not always be the case that you will run into enemies where they have both ice and fire weakness, right? Unless you are up against a specific mob. So yeah, I do think that D Himiko is basically like a alternative to mini Herta, but since you already have mini Herta, you can just basically run.
I'm sorry, do Remembrance MC to suit 800k? I'm sorry?
Of the same element, whereas it might not always be the case that you. So yeah, I do think that D Himiko is basically like a
go off, I guess.
Alternative to mini Herta, but since you already have mini Herta, you can just basically run her instead, right? So that's gonna be that. And now moving on into our support teammates. So there's the erudition. Now it's the support, right? There are essentially 3 options.
I'm just wondering if I should be using Robin or Sunday.
Choose from. One is gonna be the classic action value advances, Sunday, Bronya, Sparkle. One is gonna be our Robin, right? A classic Robin. And finally, it's gonna be Remembrance Trailblazer. So for Sunday, this is, at this point, in my opinion, the strongest slot tree, or rather the support for D Herta as of this moment,
really?
Right? Especially if you build Herta with speed boots, running the 135, 134 D Herta and Sunday setup, where Sunday it will provide D Herta with a ridiculous amount of buffs, right? You give her the additional action value advance, you give her the crit damage buff, crit rate buff, additional percentage.
Oh yeah,
energy,
and she's gonna benefit.
If both of them
from
have
her
a
crit
signature
damage
light
buff.
cone, then you can basically spam the skill every single turn with almost no issue on the skill point segment, but that does require both of them to have that signature light cone, right? With the energy regeneration from the ultimate, Big Herta can also spam the ultimate more frequently, which means that you can use her enhanced skill even more. So I do feel that out of all of the action value advances, Sunday is gonna be the current best one. I mean, to nobody's surprise, it is what it is. And keep in mind that D Herta also increases Sunday's crit damage by 80%, which means that Sunday's own crit damage buff, it'll be even stronger on D Herta because he gets even more crit damage from from running them with an erudition unit, right? So very, very nice. One thing to note is that you might experience some downtimes on the buffs because you can take 3 turns between Sunday, and you will always use basic attack to wait for Sunday's buff because of the way Herta's action value advances work from the ultimate, right? So there might be a scenario where you run out of Sunday's buff, so something to keep in mind. Also note that Sunday, when you're running him with the 4-piece Sekidos, as well as the signature light cone, the buffs might also reset. So just keep in mind the buff out time. Otherwise, Sunday is going to be the best in slot 3 between all the 3 other supports. Between Sparkle and Bronya. For Sparkle and Bronya, they are all like the worst alternatives. I wouldn't say they're unusable. Compared to Sunday, they are basically less synergistic, mainly due to the reason that they do not generate energy for D Herta. And energy is going to be a very, very important upgrade because you want to spam this enhanced skill as much as possible. So those Sparkle and Bronya gives them the action value advance, they can't give D Herta any energy, which is something that basically only Sunday provides. If you want to use Ting Yun, you could, but the action value generated from Ting Yun is just going to be way too low compared to any of those 3, so I would not recommend Ting Yun. Not to mention, Ting Yun's buffs also last very, very short. 2 turns from the ultimate and 3 turns from the hack, and D Herta has action value advance from the ultimate, which means that the buffs last even shorter, right? So that's gonna be that. And then aside from the traditional single target action value hyper carries, Robin is also going to be a very, very decent alternative because it's Robin, right? Team-wide action value advance, your team goes, and then pass Robin ultimate, then your team goes again. This is going to be more notable when the second evolution unit can deal a lot of damage. And at this point, it is pretty much only Jade. And pair this up with someone that can attack frequently in our sustain slot, namely our Gallagher or Lingsha with Crit Protocol. Otherwise, you are not going to be getting 100% uptime on Robin's ultimate, which is going to be a little bit annoying, right? If you want to run Robin with units like Mini Herta, Saval, Himiko...
So like in my case, this is probably the team I'm going to end up running. Though I did see him using Sunday with the Jade team, but I'm assuming that Robin will be overall more beneficial to the team in general than Sunday, given that Jade is also there, so Jade will also be receiving benefits. Whereas if I were to just be using Sunday, Herta's the only one getting those benefits and buffs. And Jade is kind of just gonna like be there. And like I want her whip to do damage too. Bree, if you don't go make your damn pass round,
I would say that at that point, it is just better to run Sunday instead and just direct all of Sunday's buffs into the Herta herself. Because the thing is, Mini Herta, Himiko, and Saval, their personal damage is very, very low, and it is not worth dedicating that little bit of Robin buff to them instead. So focus your attention onto the Herta with Sunday, it will be more beneficial if you are not going to be running Jade. If you are running Jade, since Jade herself does deal a pretty decent chunk of damage, running Robin here would be the best in slot choice, even better than Sunday in my personal opinion. Right?
So the team I'm looking at is the team I'm running.
And finally, for our last support slot, it's going to be Remembrance Trailblazer. For Remembrance Trailblazer, I'm not going to explain too much because I am dedicating a second early access review for RMC specifically, but just note that the Herta Tracers can generate energy, which means that it will give us more charge for Mem. And because Herta's max energy is 220, you can basically max out the additional true damage multiplier that we get from Remembrance MC. Do note that for Mem, the attacks are AoE, which is the only current support in the game we have right now. No other support can do this with a AoE attack, because Sunday, Robin, Bronya, Sparkle, Robin, none of them have an AoE attack except for Mem with Remembrance Trailblazer. Right? So all these do tell me that as a free RMC, she is not tied to just summon units. But like I mentioned, I'll explain this in the RMC video. One thing to know is that because Herta has a lot of self-action value advance on ultimate, Mem's support buff can run out a little bit quickly. Similar issues that you will get from Sunday, Tingyuan, Bronya, Sparkle. Right? So something to keep in mind. Now, finally, for our sustain slot. It is basically best in slot Lingsha, secondly Aventrine. Lingsha is our only sustain that has an AoE damage with the skill as well as the Fu Yuan Bunny as well as the ultimate, right? So we are really not giving a damn about Lingsha's break damage vulnerability or the toughness damage or even the debuff.
However,
the only thing we care about is going to be the AoE to generate interpretation stacks for the Herta.
Give me a slice.
Aventrine's follow-up attacks, they are a little bit random because his follow-up is not an AoE. His follow-up is a bounce. So if Aventrine's bounce...
Not to mention his shield also doesn't work probably at the moment because it's still bugged. Please fix that. My Aventrine doesn't hurt me properly. Oops!
It won't generate as many stacks, right? That being said, he will become a lot stronger if you're against enemies that can deliver a lot of AoE attacks themselves, which means that your Aventrine can cast a lot more frequent follow-up attacks by himself, right? So that's going to be that. I would say that at this current point, the Herta lacks a dedicated slot for sustain. Both Lingsha and Aventrine, they are not really best in slot. They're not tailor-made for the Herta. She really wants a sustain in the future that can really focus on just the evolution portion. Lingsha's break is useless, Aventrine's follow-up attack is not that frequent, so I'm just going to be waiting for the future versions for Dioda to get a dedicated support, right? Where you can honestly consider her, because technically she gives team-wide energy and attack buff, so pretty decent alternative as well, right? So that is going to be that for all of our synergies. So with all that being said, here are some considerations for team building. You can run the Herta, Jade, Robin, and Lingsha. I do believe this is her current one of, if not the strongest team comps right now. Another alternative is you can run the Herta, Herta with Saval and
Oh, I'm in this
Sunday
phase again.
plus Lingsha. So
Oops.
if you're not going to be running Jade, running Herta with Saval for the second generation, then using Sunday to funnel buffs would be also very, very good.
Here.
If you do not have Lingsha, running Adventure as an alternative is going to be a decent choice. And then one last option is going to be D Herta with Mini Herta, Remembrance Trailblazer, as well as Gallagher. So this is going to be a pure 4-star, no 5-star investments, very, very low barrier to entry, and she still performs exceptionally well after all that being said, right? So in conclusion, I feel that D Herta right now is at a very, very, very strong spot. Her baseline kit is already extremely strong. Even without any of the items or Litecoins, the fact that her enhanced skills main target is at a 952% multiplier means that she already has the baseline to be strong. She just needs teammates, sustained specifically, to generate more stacks for D Herta, more energy for D Herta, so that she can cast the ultimate and enhanced skill more frequently. And in my opinion, she lacks the dedicated sustain slot the most. For Robin and Sunday, they are both her current best in slot support, but both Robin and Sunday, they have their individual cons as well. So for example, Robin's follow-up attack oriented buffs basically useless for D Herta, and D Herta herself and the teammates, they might not generate enough energy for Robin to cast her ultimate very, very frequently. And then for Sunday's buffs, half his buffs are basically tied to her summons, and since D Herta has no summons, she can't really make the full use of Sunday as well, right? Then her best in slot sustain, I already mentioned, waiting for a future one. So at this current point, I would say that D Herta, she has good room for future growth. Maybe she gets a dedicated support like a Jiao Qiu for Aircraft in the future. Who knows, by then we'll have to wait and see. But all that aside, she is currently still at a very, very strong baseline, right? All our endgame content of this current moment, they're all catered for D Herta, right? 5 target Memory of Chaos, Pure Vision is Pure Vision, so it's basically perfect. And then Apoc Shadows now has the Banana Boss, and the new Storm Boss is going to be a 5 target. So basically all 5 target stuff, all for D Herta, she's going to be fine. I would say that if you're up against targets that are not 5 targets as of now, she might not be the very best until we get stronger dedicated supports for D Herta, right? At this point, I would say that she is the strongest DPS right now in Pure Vision. Even a free-to-play team like Mini Herta with RMC and Gallagher, she can still easily clear 40,000 points, but she might have problems when there are scenarios where it is not 5 targets. Somewhat similar to how like Argenti previously is not going to be performing too well, right? So that is pretty much going to be that for our early access review. And yep, a whole lot about D Herta. Yeah, so the word of the day is going to be time twirl, join Twitch, join YouTube, join Discord, join Twitter, join Twitter, all the best.
Follow Mr. Pokey. Hail Mr. Pokey. Okay, so the verdict. I'm pulling for a. There was no doubt. There was absolutely no doubt. There was no doubt that I was gonna pull for her. I love D Herta more than life itself. I have been very excited for D Herta. Big Herta. I am extremely excited. I'm getting her regardless. Looks like, okay, based on what he was saying, I do very much agree. She doesn't have, she has quote unquote best in slots at the moment, but she doesn't have dedicated supports. Yes, Aventurine and Lingsha work for her as her best sustains, but Aventurine isn't really catered to her, nor is Lingsha. Lingsha is a break support, not really catered for Miss Pretty Herta. Erudition character, what again? Really, we only yes, we have other options, but in terms of ones that do damage, it's really just Jade, and then there's just the rest of the Erudition characters that are there. So we don't really have other than Jade, we don't really have a character that's a shoe-in for oh yeah, we need another Erudition character. I bet put this one. For Acheron, for example, when she came out. Oh, you need 2 Nihility characters? I bet. Throw on a Pella. Throw on a Black Swan. Throw on a Silver Wolf. A Jiao Qiu, right? She has those dedicated options that are the go-tos. Oh yeah, put this character here. This makes sense. Herta doesn't really have that. And then support, same thing he has said. Again, Robin, which I can confirm, someone who's used her a lot on non-follow-up teams. Her energy generation rate without Huahua or follow-ups is very low. It's a struggle. There is not a lot of uptime on that ult. I'll be taking maybe 4, not usually 5. It's just 4. If I get really cucked with my energy, 5 turns on her ultimate, and that's just really sucky and really slow, and obviously you want her to be ulting more. And then in Sunday's case, the whole summon damage bonus she doesn't apply it for at all because she doesn't do summons. She's not a summoner. However, I want Big Herta. I'm gonna get Big Herta, and nothing is going to stop me from getting Big Herta. The literal day that patch comes out, I'm gambling, I'm pulling her, and nothing's gonna stop me.